Would you look at the time? Look who it is. It is your boys from the LJLOU. I am Initia1ise. I am joined by a veritable conference of some of the best and greatest minds in our scene right now, namely Nymaera, Temporal, Middlecott, and of course dear old Melvin here with his amazing wall as ever behind him that we're all mildly jealous of. You should have been in the back room before all this began. I tell you,
some people have brickwork, some people have long cats.
Some people just have a bedspread indeed. Yeah. I have a
I may not be, but at least my wall is built.
Yeah, exactly that. It's already off the rails. We've not even been live, actually live for more than 10 seconds. What do you know? Anyway, we're on to episode. Is it 51, 52? Something like that. I'm not normally the one who keeps track of that, so it's a number in the 50s early on. Hold to that. Otherwise, it's like season 2, episode 19 or 20. Again, by the same token. We'll find out when I upload this. Either way, here's where we're at. We've got ourselves some things to get through. We'll be talking power rankings for pretty much everybody here. We'll be talking week 1 as well, because obviously that starts on Saturday. Finally kicking off the split here in the LJL. I won't add the OU because our teams aren't actually, unofficial. They're the real deal. And before that, we've got ourselves some things to be talking about. Namely, Alex, my brother.
Hello, yes, that's me.
If people were to go to YouTube,
right?
If people were to, be interested in this podcast, what should they be doing?
They should be clicking suggested links until they turn up to the really strange meme edit videos. No, you should be liking, commenting, and subscribing. Do everything you can to interact with us because it really helps us. That's what you. Okay, I know you're going to do the other thing, but please do that as well before you move on.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have asked him. All right. Well, okay. Temporal, buddy. I know you used to work in radio, and radio is kind of in a weird space right now because in some ways it's getting infringed on by all the podcasts. Like us, we're infringing on that. But if people were to go listen to the podcast, what should they be doing to boost the podcast?
I mean, you should check this podcast out everywhere it's available. I don't know exactly where we're available, but I'm going to guess
Spotify. Everywhere but SoundCloud is the honest answer.
Everywhere but SoundCloud. On your favorite. On your favorite podcasting software, please go and subscribe to us. Email them to tell them how much you love the LJL.
This is it. This is what we love.
And then just let us know on Twitter because once you've done that much, we just really want to say thank you.
Indeed. Yeah. Drop a 5-star rating as well. That's always a really easy one, and we appreciate that a lot because we're all worth 5 stars. I like my gold stars, and I would like 5 of them. Get it sorted, guys. All right, that's enough shilling. I've done enough of that now. Let instead discuss some stuff. I'm aware I've allowed 3 people to talk right now, and Middlecott and Melvin have just been sat there wondering why are they here right now. But it means we could potentially, ladies and gentlemen, start with them as we move on to talk about some power rankings. Now, do you mind getting that up on screen for us, dear Nymaera?
I can do that. Which one do you want? Do you want our big old document?
I trust you to get the one with the appropriate people's power rankings up. So
both of them technically have the appropriate. We're gonna go for this one, and we'll talk about maybe the another version of it later. But this is basically everyone on our big old spreadsheet, including a load of people who might actually be in chat as well, in terms of their power rankings for end of split, for this split, for summer split 2021. All of us here are involved with that, including. Of course, Lexi and Midnight are not here today. I think both of them are feeling a little bit ill, so we're wishing them a speedy recovery. But they're also on here, so we can flame them while they're not here to defend themselves.
Exactly, he's figured it out. For people who will be listening to this as an audio-only option, which I completely understand, it's how I do my podcast mostly anyway, there'll be some notes for the appropriate people's power rankings in the show notes. And, of course, we'll probably link something like a tweet because there will be power rankings on there at some point in the relative future anyway. We've lost Melvin as briefly, but he's back with...
Oh, no.
Printing his printer. Don't worry.
Oh, no.
Okay.
The power printer, it's back.
We brought Melvin on. Partly because he's, he's
wall and printer. That's all I'm here for.
I'm not even joking. He's an okay caster. He's an alright analyst. Yeah. But the wall is really classy, and we wanted that on broadcast. And 2, his printer is a thing of beauty, and the things he come out with are the top tier 2D content you've been looking for all your life. anime, that's not important. This is the 2D life you need to be leading, and that's all on Melvin Assault.
So not a comparison I thought I'd be given today, but you know what? I'm okay with it.
Look, you're part of the LJL right now. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, two things are happening. First off, I'm gonna make sure I'm not seeing Melvin Assault's cam. So just like you, dear viewer, I'm not spoiling myself for what the hell is gonna happen when I switch back to that scene.
It's fine.
If you're on audio, if you're gonna be audio, like, you're not going to learn either way, so I'm really sorry for that. But we'll try and describe it as best as possible. So if we want to talk about, so Sam, if we want to talk about individual like rank and stuff like that, I'll bring this up. When we want to talk about like more overall trends and stuff, I can go back to actually this really cool graphic, which is more the correlated ones. We have also like, so myself, Initia1ise, and then MaskedSwan. We have our ones there, and they're basically correlated of everyone else's come through in RNGs, but we already have literally random.org involved in our rankings, so we already have that.
I fear it.
So you can see that is a lot of predictions on screen right now. But you'll notice, if you look at those predictions right now, that there is a very startling band of blue at the top of them, with very few exceptions.
One of which is random.org.
Focus Me are looking pretty good coming into this split.
Holding every first place bar Midnights and random.orgs. I feel like DFM, funnily enough, do warrant that level of confidence coming into this split.
And Midnight has literally put the Hawks first, purely because Corporal is on the team and he's Australian. So I appreciate the regional faith, but be aware there is a touch of bias within Midnight's options.
Yeah, I love how obviously Mabinogi, who's on the VCS cast and was also another person out in that kind of time zone, is that they're like, oh, Midnight knows something we don't. Well, you should know this too, buddy. The Aussie power stands strong.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we were coming into this split. We'd had our own predictions, really, of where things were in spring splits, and largely we hit okay on where we were at. There were one or two that kind of surprised us. You know, Rascal Jesters being legitimately really good, Soul and Secret. I had some faith in. A lot of other people were a little bit more dubious on them. We were like, oh my days, it's like a retired mid laner and a rookie top laner in your solo lanes. That sounds like disaster. It turns out it wasn't. Great news for them. Bit of faith coming into summer for them, and the other one, of course, being potentially Burning Core and the Hawks, who kind of underperformed what we were expecting of them. Burning Core in particular, in my eyes. But aside from that, we felt like we got mostly okay coming into spring, and as it turned out, at the end of spring, we sort of had DFM in first, Justice in second, Sengoku V3 third and fourth, CGA in that fifth place spot, and then it was that kind of bottom of the pack of the Hawks, Burning Core, and Axis who all really struggled. And now coming into some, we've all seen what's going on. Tell you what, maybe this is the most sensible thing to do at this point. Is basically just go around and give a quick rundown of everyone's power rankings, and then we can talk about potentially some outliers here, some interesting points of contention, and allow everybody to pick up a point or a team they want to talk about a little bit on that front. So, I'll start, I guess, as the host because I can. My personal rankings, power rankings coming in to the summer split. DFM first, no surprise. Jesters in second. Sengoku Gaming in third. V3 fourth. CGA in fifth. I'm holding on to some hope for Burning Core in sixth. Hawks in seventh. And Axis, unfortunately, down dead last. Save discussion for a moment, guys. I know the Burning Core one might bring some eyebrows. I'm fine to discuss that. Nymaera, go next.
So, I'm trying to see where I've actually differed from you. So, I think, so top two, exactly the same between me and Sam. So, we've got DFM, then Rascal Jester, feeling pretty happy in terms of the end of regular split from last split. Of course, V3 ended up pipping Rascal Jester as opposed to Pluffs. I've put them in third. Sengoku, I have a few more potential worries about. I put them down in fourth. Bottom half of the table, that's where things get a little different because I have a bit more hope in the Hawks, which, I mean, I'm not Midnight, but I've got them a bit higher than potentially some others do as well, so I have them in fifth. Then I round out my table with CGA, Burning Core, then Axis. So Burning Core, no hope here.
All right, middle cop. You can weigh in now. I'm aware I've been chatting radio with Temporal, because why wouldn't I? And then Melvin Nuzzle's been whirring his printer into action. So finally, mate, give us some power rankings and get on this podcast. What's going on?
I can talk. I'm allowed. No, that's okay.
Go for it.
Basically, what I was thinking on my power rankings is the A lot of very smart people had some very good ideas about where all the teams were, so that's why I put sort of DFM, V3, top 2. I think that's not really particularly contentious. Obviously, V3 came through second place in spring, but then CGA, my boys, I'll talk about them a little bit more in a little bit, but I really think they've got a shot of pushing up through the table, grabbing third
hold
place
on to
spot.
that one.
Is going to drop Rascal Justice. No, Nymaera, we're going to have a fight about this one, and it's going to be civil, and I'm going to come out on top, okay? So don't worry about that one just
I'm
yet.
looking forward to it. Here we go.
My sweet
play the analyst, and I still trust Middlecott over
There's a screen
Nymaera.
cap of our Discord somewhere of messages where Middlecott has said, I'm a CGA fan until I die, and then I just remember back. Actually, I might have. Where's hang on, oh no, I can't play it because we get a copyright strike. Because the up music, do 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 to Nymaera 2020.
Yeah,
that's basically what it was.
Well,
I'm sat there looking at this team, like, I have so much trust in this team.
Okay.
And
stop. The pain could come back. Middlecott, finish your power rankings. Stop with the up conversation. Because we're not going up, we're going in at a right angle. Stop the tangent.
Yeah, well, we're going down the standings right now because obviously Rascal gets to kind of come through in full. So Goku
descent into hell. Continue.
Don't have a lot of faith in them. I think they're going to come out fifth. Then rounding out the bottom, I feel like Axis. Bot lane's pretty good, so they could do bits. But then the Hawks and Burning Core, I think, a little bit doomer.
The thing is, I appreciate the faith. The thing is, I absolutely get it because I think Honey is a god, and I feel very bad for him considering where he's at. But we don't have time to talk about it because I've still got 2 bit more people to get through in terms of power rankings. So, Melvin Izzle, you won the coin to flip in my head. I didn't really make a proper discussion on that. I chose a name beginning with M or T, and I went with the M one. So, your power rankings, sir.
So, I have got the bog standard DFM at the top, as most people do. I would say the vast majority. Then I've got Sengoku rounding out in second, followed by Rascal Jester and V3. And then making out the rest of the top 6, I have a little bit different of Crest Gaming Act and the Burning Corpse themselves, just barely edging into 6th, followed by the Hawks and then Axis not making it into playoffs at the bottom.
Look, all I'm going to say is you've got very similar standings to me, and that should probably be a point of alarm. Like, I won the best analyst in spring 2020, but aside from that, like, it's not been quite so close. So just to warn it, like, the big difference there is obviously you've got Sengoku ahead of me in second, whereas you've got Rascal Jester in third, whereas I got those 2 flipped. So we'll see. I'm trusting in the fact that I'm feeling a little bit more relieved in some ways. I'm joining up with another analyst here as someone who's
a new analyst. So you're meant to be the authority.
That's true. Also, the league. I am play-by-play and host here, so I'm trying to play slightly dumb. Whereas I actually have some faith in my.
Can I just say,
I really do.
Like Patrick has brought this up in chat, and Patrick's obviously done some producing work for us before. And we're very fond of them, very close to our heart. And also, happy birthday for yesterday. Has pointed out that even random.org has not been bold enough to put Hawks and Axes outside the bottom 2.
It was good stuff. There was the little thing of like highest and lowest ranking, and I was just looking at them, and because of random.org, it's completely scuffed. Yeah. Like every team could have been every place except for Axis.
So I'm assuming, I'm assuming random.org is basically just random placement.
Yes, absolutely.
I think their CGA placement is pretty good.
All right, moving on. Okay, last person, Temporal finishes up. I'm not heading this conversation right now. Go on.
So mine are slightly ill-informed. I haven't been able to go and watch all of playoffs like I wanted to, but then I've sort of looked at team direction and age to inform mine. So funny enough, DFM were playing with what should have been a mild handicap last split, so they should smurf this one. If they don't, they should probably look to sub that coach back in and tell him to get off the bench. So I've got them finishing first, no surprises. I expect Rascal Jester to run a repeat and to come second again. V3 in third place. Maybe that's a number correlation thing. I expect the SoftBank Hawks to get off the ground, so I've got them slightly higher in fourth. I have faith in the Hawks. Is it misplaced? Probably. We'll find out. I'm looking. I'm looking not to compete for predictions. Either you're all going to lose, or I'm going to lose. There is only one way this ends.
Okay, there could be only one.
Some of my predictions off kilter. Because the only way I win is if, like, the rest of you were slightly off. Like, my accuracy doesn't matter.
All right.
That's the strategy. Yeah, to keep going Sengoku in fifth. I think the team might struggle if they don't follow a slightly different direction, because they should be competing with V3, RJ, and DFM, right? If they fail to pull that off, it will end up with 4th, 5th place. I put the Burning Core in 6th.
Good man.
I actually want random orgs predictions to be true. I think Burning Core need to get their stuff together. This meta should favor them.
If DFM finish 5th with that
That's
roster,
what I'm thinking as well.
like suddenly
Yeah.
we're winning worlds, guys. Like,
Suddenly we're winning
like
worlds.
if that roster finishes
Yeah.
5th, like, sorry world, like you've yeah. If there are 4 teams that can beat DFM, that's nutty.
Let's go. Okay, and then just to play on Middlecott's heart, I've got CJ in 7th, and then Axis in 8th because I did watch an Axis game.
Gonna
I'm
have
so
a
sorry.
falling out temporal.
Interesting. All right. We've got a few odd ones out here, so let's start maybe because I started. Anybody on, like, I open this one to the floor, and the first one to yell loudly, we'll get to talk about this. Any particular predictions in there from my end you think are unreasonable or a little bit unusual? I'm aware there was some Burning Core eyebrows raised, but anything else people want to be talking about in there?
So I think that the reasonable placement of Burning Core is bottom 3. Like, I think any of the bottom 3 could sneak into playoffs by proxy of the fact that all of those 3 teams are super struggling. Like, one of them is just going to fall apart harder than the rest, and that means that the wins might come slightly easier, and then the other teams, just because they've managed to pick up the wins between those 3 teams, could come through. So I don't mind, like, Burning Core, Hawks, Axis being the bottom 3. I have, like I said, I actually have a bit more hope in the Hawks, though, so I guess we'll talk about it in that sense. But what's everyone's thoughts on the very, I guess, controversial team of Burning Core? Because they've obviously disappointed for a little while now.
I also have put the Core in 6th. They only have to beat the other 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all they got to do to get 6th.
Absolutely.
The reason the only reason I put Burning Core getting out or into playoffs, better said, is because I was looking at how the Hawks got into playoffs last time, right? And it was with a 2-0 over Burning Core, right? So theoretically, if 3 out of your 4 wins are against the bottom 4, that's okay. But the one team they beat that wasn't out of playoffs was the one game they took off of Crest.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining that this time Crest can quite feasibly get that 2-0, and then suddenly it does not look good for the Hawks coming through, because that's a 3-win record that they're coming in with by comparison, and that doesn't look great.
So I'm aware we're talking about teams properly just after this. So we're talking about some main narratives. So I don't want to get too hard onto this, but I want to put this out there. You've got a meta where you've got a hard carry top laner who loves his Darius in top lane, in a meta where Gwen is now meta. You have a jungler who is notorious for basically saying, I play all the damage carries and I am the carry now. Screw you, AD carry. Look at me. I am the carry now. That's what he does. And things like Lee Sin, he could probably pick back up again if he wanted to. He's the guy who went Yuumi Lee Sin and went like 10-1 in 10 minutes.
It's pretty good.
Just saying, when Burning Core were good, that was a kind of meta which really worked for them. So,
Can I just say that, so obviously, we had that, the moment with the CGA Nymaera 2020 thing there. I can probably remember all of the random moments from CGA 2020 that I could kind of back up my points with. Sam is exactly the same for Burning Core from last year, because he really respects once. I'd completely forgotten that game, and Sam's like, oh yeah, remember the Yuumi Lee Sin? I'm like, oh yeah, actually that did happen. That shows you how much potential bias there could be from
all I'm saying is the guy who picked up Kindred and when a 1v3 did a 9k
he remembers this too.
And won the 1v3. Like, he got a 5-level jungle advantage.
That was against
over a
Hogwarts,
guy.
Sam. Does it count?
Yes, it does. Hogwarts is right.
Is this one of the cases where you remember exactly the outliers of every other situation?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay. So specifically,
Confirmation bias. What is that?
Okay, so specifically, this is a guy who basically hard carries or falls off. He doesn't really do supportive, is the problem, which was a real issue last split. Like, Chem Tank was just not him, and it really showed. He didn't manage to adapt that well. But in a meta where potentially you could run a bit more carry in the jungle, he may be feeling a little happier. Anyway, let's move on. Nymaera, lads, what the hell is with CGA down in 6th for Nymaera?
CJ down to 6th. I'm basically trying to hedge my bets and think, all right, at what point is Milan not going to be an actual detriment to this team? Because at that point, I think that CGA could push. They could actually push even for 4th, Middlecott has something strong to get them up to third, because I think actually I'd say that on the whole with my power rankings, I have tried to judge where is the weakest failing point. Most of the time it's in jungle and bot lane across the entirety of the LJL. I think CGA's bot lane is potentially the worst in the entire league, but their jungler and Kassin, after a split where they have shown the early pressure junglers outside of a meta where that's actually a thing, and now they can actually go on to Jinzao, which is like their favored pick, and a whole load of other picks like that. I think that CJ could do well. I'm just really worried that they're not going to be able to play around bot. I'm sure that they're going to fall apart for a number of different games. Question is, how many? I could have a different read on, like a wrong read on them and how much they've developed in this offseason. I'm just worried about that bot lane. I think everyone I've put above them in the table has a superior bot lane. I think that's going to sting them.
All right, let's move on. Melvinism. I'm looking at your lineups here. Nothing super surprising aside from you've really pushed Sengoku up to second.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this is more of a confidence in, particularly in the bot lane. I think that just a meta read coming into this, with how much we've had Varus, Kog'Maw, and the like starting to just slowly sneak their way into meta. We know for a fact that they love playing Aphelios Thresh in the bottom lane.
They really do.
So having this kind of combo just shows that if you can ever so slightly twist it, if you can just barely move it to a Koglulu, put it into a Varus and a poke thing, then you can quite feasibly play very similar on what I believe to be the best champions in the bot lane right now, which is a major benefit. Now, I'm sure the next question is going to be, okay, so why is it not Sol and Secret? Because they're also a very, very good bot lane. I don't have a great answer for that one, if I'm being honest. Because
this is the prediction winner pick. I see you. All right, Middlecott, step in here before Melvinism puts his foot in anymore. Anything you want to add on the Sengoku pick? Anything you want to tear apart? You've been quiet for a moment or two, aside from the cackles of laughter.
I think
This is fine.
forgot. I think that Melvinism forgot that Solid Secret existed.
Okay.
I remember, but it is their first split. That's the one solace that I have there. Of maybe.
Solace? Really? That was the pun you went for? I don't think it was even intentional, but I called it. All right, moving on. Let's see who comes up next, and it's Temporal. Okay. All right, anything in here that's kind of surprising people?
I've put a certain team not finishing in playoffs.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
Temporal and I both have some CGA worries.
For you.
Okay. We really do, do. I've teamed them up with some. I've teamed them up with some Melvinizel style. To see the future, and you got to choose some time to beat the bottom few that we see things like, and then we're off to. It's sort of you got to continue to struggle. I think it.
Slight stream issues out.
Oh, the stream has. Oh, that's not very good.
Check in.
Yeah.
A couple minutes in, we'll keep our eye.
I on it though.
They can run.
Lol.
We're back.
I think we're back.
Oh, we're back.
I think we're back.
Why?
Momentary internet lags there. Left us off air for half a second, but we're back. Nymaera doesn't have to stress anymore. We're here. We've been talking some really arcane weirdness about Burning Core in the background, which probably deserves not to be on the podcast, so that's fine. And Seb will move over to Middlecott. And all right, couple things we need to probably talk about here. I mean, he's put Burning Core down in dead last, which again, considering the dumpster fire, I'm not super dodgy about that one, but CGA in third. We've talked a fair amount about CGA, but you've clearly decided the coin flip goes the other way. Defend it, mate.
Right, so I don't know how in depth you want me to go, because I have got pages of reasons as to why I think CGA are actually one of the teams.
How much of it is love poetry?
So. There's a lot of love in there. There's a lot of oh god, I pray that Milan gets better. But I think that he's showing signs. His laning hasn't been good, but I think coming through as a rookie, obviously there's going to be some teething issues, Kassin as well, and that's why I've got them placed above teams like Sengoku and like RJ, who I think are going to fall off a little bit. There is room for growth on Crest.
Mm.
They are the only team that was sort of in that 3rd, 4th, 5th place bracket that had 2 rookies on it. Everyone else is pretty much a known quantity. And I like that we're talking about this being really outlandish. They're only 1 win away from being 3rd in spring. I don't think this is absolutely crazy. I think the meta's shifting into a place where laning phase is going to be a little bit covered up because stuff like Ezreal and Varus are really strong. So worst case scenario, Milan can just like sit back and ignore lane and then just show up in team fights. And then Alchemy can roam, start landing hooks. And then I wake up and I realize that, oh no, it's still Crest. But I've got faith. I believe in this team.
All right. In fairness, the top side of the map is pretty good. I still quite rate Nap. The man is a phenomenal team fighter. He might have some issues when it comes to like getting advantages purely in lane, but he plays weak side super well. I have some hope there. I can see it. So we're raising your finger at me, Melvin Izzle. You got something to add in there?
I do notice that Middlecott is the only person that has a certain Axis team out of playoffs.
Out of bottom as well. So yes. So okay, yeah, that's a fair shout. Why have you put them up in 6th? That's another one to call out there. Actually, that's a reasonable one. Defend yourself. Axis in 6th. What's got you pushing them out of the bottom? Considering they did not look good in spring, unfortunately.
Honey.
Fair. We leave the conversation. Moving on.
Yeah.
An insane stats.
And we'll have that conversation as we move on to the next section, ladies and gentlemen. We've done ourselves some power rankings here, and we can bring our beautiful faces back on screen because it's time to talk a little bit more about specifically some of the narratives coming into this split, set ourselves up, and particularly talk about what is going on with, namely what we're expecting coming into week 1. Let's have a bit of a chat about our week 1 matchups. That's the one I was going for. It took me half a second there to really go. There's a name for this.
More than half a second initialized.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I got distracted by something else briefly. I apologize. Instead, let's talk about some of these matchups because we got ourselves some juicy ones coming up. First on the docket, Detonation Focus Me versus Rascal Jester will be the first game up. We won't be covering it live, unfortunately, because time zones and 5 a.m. over here is a bit rough. But we'll certainly be covering it a little later on in the day anyway, and we'll have that conversation.
So like, obviously that's a little misleading in some ways, right? Because some people will be like, we'll be covering it the day after. No, what we're doing on for week 1, and hopefully we're going to be doing throughout the rest of this split, is we're going to be doing the last 4 games of the game day live, and then as soon as that last one ends, we're going to go do the ones which we missed. So we're going to still have 8 games back to back, just leapfrogging the first 4 over to the end of the broadcast. We are going to see it within a couple of hours of it happening. Not going to be quite live though, because forgive us and our silly British sensibilities, because we're mostly on this time zone, and also our sleep patterns.
Yeah. Indeed. So with that in mind, first 4 games actually going to be our last 4 games, but don't worry too much about it. You'll see it on the day, and we're still going to talk about it in the order that's on the screen because that's just easier for me, frankly. And DFM versus Rascal Jester is a banger, is it not? Temporal, you can start this one off.
It is. This is going to be the question of what have DFM been doing since MSI, or indeed what have Rascal Jester been watching of MSI, and have they got something secret planned to upset our particular favorites? I believe DFM are playing with their new support. I believe.
Yes.
Ooh, exciting. Okay. A test of him straight in at the top against their rivals for the top end of the table. An exciting one for sure. Shall I put too many predictions on it? Probably not. I think DFM looks stronger based on what I saw Rascal Jester, but they've had a lot of time in the lab, so it could definitely go either way.
I think that the crux of this matchup for me, the important thing to take away from it is, because so when we were off air, we were chatting as we do. Like there was a lot of stuff about, well, how do these teams adapt in the off season? How do they adapt between playoffs? Which are the best teams at adapting? Typically, DFM have been very good at that, but Rascal Jester is one of the things that we did end up doing very well. One of the things they did very well last split was, again, coming in very hot and finding their style very, very quickly. I'm wondering if DFM have reset that mark a little bit, bringing Gang back in, and the question is if they're going to play more bot-centric now that they have Yutapon and Gang, which was, for the longest time, the bot lane to beat within the region. Is that going to reset them? Are Rascal Jester actually slightly ahead of them due to that factor?
Middlecott, anything to weigh in here?
Yeah, I think in terms of general meta shift, that's going to be an interesting move as well because I think top side is a little bit stronger than it has been for a while. So obviously there is a tendency when you've got such a strong bot lane, Utapon and Gang to play towards it, and maybe that ends up biting them in the butt because Kinatu for Rascal Jester looked very good last split. Maybe not quite Ebby level, but we'll have to see whether he's improved enough over the offseason to really start challenging him. And if we end up in a situation where Rascal Jester were able to get leads through their top side, then I feel that Soul and Secret are actually strong enough to withstand an onslaught that DFM would put towards bot lane if that's the way they play. So I think it's a very interesting matchup. I still think it's DFM favored just because like they've got the best players in every role. But I think it'll definitely be pretty close.
We'll keep our eyes. I mean, I will say this is a meta where Gwen's a thing, and she has disgusting level 1s in lane, and someone who does horrible things at level 1 in lane to an enemy top lane is a guy called Ebby. Yeah. And Kinatu, I mean, he's a guy who, picked Camille into Ebby's Gnar, won the coin flip to get to level 6, literally off a single minion difference. Gets the solo kill. This is the guy who has got some confidence in his play, and his team's got confidence in him. So maybe they can play around that. But even so, there are some meta picks right now where I go, maybe don't want to give like Ebby, Akali, or Gwen, or maybe don't give that to Arya either. Oh wait, there's this bot lane thing. So that becomes an issue for Rascal Jester, perhaps in my mind. But to possibly offer a little bit more in-depth analysis than that, Melvin, is all last thoughts before we perhaps move on to our next game.
I don't think there's much more to say because one of the things that I always feel weird about doing predictions for a week 1 of a split is current form can be all the way at the top or absolutely crashed. Yep. Like, it does not matter how well you did at the end of the last split. That's a good promising notion of like where your cap could be or where your bottom could be. But frankly, coming into a new split, regardless of whether you're DFM or Axis, it only takes having one bad set of scrims, one poor meta read, not learning to lock in Viego Gwen every time it's open, and suddenly you don't look so hot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal, right?
I fetched them.
Oh, well done.
Wow.
Nice. Any bigger Akali players in week 1 that I don't know about?
Arya, Ebby are the two really big ones.
And then there's Dasher and Cog. That was a pretty much
Dasher and Cog.
Like, pretty much no one else plays Akali.
I could see maybe someone like Recap going for it. Ramane has historically...
I saw he spammed it a lot in solo queue recently. That's what I was going to ask.
But Ramane spammed Lucian and Akali in solo queue of Worlds 2020, and he's never going to play those champions. He never did.
Brilliantly, Lucian's getting taken out of the mid lane, so I think it's really good for Ramane, but we can come to that.
Yeah, that
later.
is interesting as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, maybe I could see Ramane going towards it's his kind of thing as well, but he's been doing... We'll see how it goes anyway. Last thought as well, just before we do move on a little bit, is, obviously, as we mentioned briefly in passing there, DFM bringing back in Gang. Utapon and Gang got years of synergy, but it's been a hot minute since they've played together consistently. They're going up against Sol and Secret, who were arguably the best bot lane in the damn league. They certainly got the official broadcast, like, all-team pro slots for both Sol and Secret in the sort of first team over Utapon and Kazu at the time. Is that a potential hole to pick at there? Because obviously you've got two very strong bot lanes, but one with a little bit more immediate synergy. You haven't had to work on getting back together. Is that something that maybe the Jesters could get back at DFM3? Or do you just think it's not going to be an issue?
Pick Varus, and it will be.
Also,
yeah,
it's true.
There's
that. And
Temporal has decided this is the choice. That's his meta of the moment.
I'm not sure if we talked about this on last podcast or not. It escapes my immediate memory, but I think I was saying something to someone about the LJL, which is very vague. About I define the LJLs like power picks within two champions in terms of like their signature picks anyway, and that's LeBlanc and it's Ezreal. LeBlanc obviously is still in a very awkward place. You can play it if you're very good at it, and I'd love to see Arya pick that up again. But Ezreal's back. This is going to be the patch where Ezreal is still very strong. I think we'll still get a week of that before things change, and that is going to incredibly power this league. We have some very, very experienced Ezreal players. I actually think Utapon might be one of the most experienced Ezreal players in the entirety of League of Legends history in the world.
Because he's
This guy's been playing since Season 3. I think there are plenty of options for DFM either to just chuck all of their bans bot side if they really want, or you can get yourself something like I think DFM, let me just check on the predictions again. So DFM being on the left-hand side normally means that they have side choice. So if DFM have themselves side choice, they can either choose to do something like go on blue side for the first pick, because Nocturne's obviously a pretty good first pick. A whole lot of other stuff is decent there, and they can flex that around even on blue side. But if you go red side and just pick up Ezreal Karma, I think at that point Rascal Jester don't really have many options. Or as Temporal was saying, was the Varus as well. Is there anything else like you think Temporal? Because obviously, well, actually, I mean anyone. But do you think there are ways to really just nullify bot lane even in a matchup like this from very early on in the draft? Because I've seen a couple of teams do that decently well.
So there's the Varus paradigm, right? Nothing beats him in bot lane. Nothing. They can pick Ezreal and they will have the slow losing, but then Varus outranges the Frozen Heart, so you can't do the full tank shenanigans, and Cogmore gets completely neutralized. North Americans disrespecting it does not mean it is good. Hecarim is back on this patch, and I know
Sunder
the
Hecarim,
LJL. Yeah, Sunder Hecarim. You can do Chem Tank as well. It's still really open, and it will appear next patch when people realize that Xin Zhao is not the best. If you want to, disrespect your opponents, it's great. But if you
I mean, Xin Zhao plus Lulu is like, I can start fights with people who are clearing too slowly. Like that's kind of it. But you need to actually get things rolling. And I see, that could be dangerous. Absolutely.
If you take the Varus away or you pick the Hecarim, there are reduced tools on the current patch for opening up that bottom lane. So could see DFM look to attack that either with a ban or saying like Nocturne 1, if you pick the Varus, we'll find you.
Okay. Interesting calls. I like it. And of course, DFM definitely have two of the more experienced Nocturne players. Both Ebby has not bad in the top lane, but Steel is probably the most experienced Nocturne pro jungler in the world. Like he's played more of it than most other pro players.
Between him and maybe someone like Levi from VCS, because obviously he played that for a while.
It's pretty nuts. So that's worth keeping our eyes on. I mean, Hachimecha's no slouch on it either.
Yeah,
so
true. I seem to remember Steel is a very experienced Nocturne now. I checked his JRL stats
it's like
when he played
silly, like his third most played champion.
Why have you played like 20 games of this? No one plays this champion.
Anyway, let us move on. And instead talk about our next game, because it's still a Rascal Jester's game, so some of those points will still hold true, but it's versus Axis. And I do kind of want to turn our eyes a little bit more to Axis. Middlecott, you have some faith in them, so I'm going to give you the first protocol on this matchup. It's a tough one, considering where things are out, but do you think Honey could do it?
Yeah, I think it's a really rough one. I think if you're Axis, you wouldn't have wanted to go against Rascal Jester as the first game, because you are matching up against Soul and Secret, because it's the one strong point that you really have for Axis is matching up against one of the other premier bot lanes. So maybe if Honey's really sort of leveled up even further over the off season, then maybe there's a chance for them there. But I honestly feel like top side is just going to get rolled. And Megamin, Sololaners aren't really going to do much. And whilst Hoglet may try and get something done, it's not going to be enough. So this is a very Rascal Jester favor for me.
The X factor for me is AD mid laners actually quite strong right now.
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know, Megamin came in as this split from Scouting Grounds, which of course MaskedSwan it followed quite religiously, had some really strong opinions about how this player could play. He's a Zed main. He could very much come in and just pick Zed and say, actually, if we're going to pick ourselves something like Hoglet has occasionally played stuff like the Karthus, actually. Hoglet for me is one of the most variable players within the league, because at his best, Hoglet was taking games off of top teams. Like, I think it was the 0 and 8 Axes, turned it around, didn't get into playoffs, but they still took games off of, at them, the second place Sengoku. I think even they were first place for a little, no, not in summer 2020, but like, Hoglet has been amongst the best and the worst players in this league. If they find a pick to enable him and Megaman at the same time, that's a path to victory for me. They just haven't managed to find a way to fire on all cylinders the entirety of this spring split, though. Axes need to change a lot for me to start changing predictions as well.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this one?
Did they beat Rascal Jester's last split, is my question.
That was one of the more insane games we have ever seen, with some of the interesting drafts where effectively Rascal Jester's kind of got outranged a little bit. It was a fun one. And also, this was a little bit before people had kind of worked out what to do against the likes of Megamin in particular. Who basically turns out, if he's not tracked, can do a lot of work with a lead. If he's ever shut down, he doesn't play mid-game that well from even, is the problem. That was kind of where axes were falling apart a little bit, is that in the mid-game, they could do pretty well in the early game. Like, Hogler could get leads, Honey looked pretty good, Megamin, not an awful laner, he'd fall a bit behind, but, you know, if you got to that and he got some kills, you could run over things, top laner could roam down, and that was all well and good. But the problem is, once you start getting to, like, really the setups for objective fights, those mid-game critical moments, Axis just weren't at the level the other teams were yet, and they got punished for it pretty much week in, week out. And Megamin in particular was often the one who suffered from that. And it gets worse then because obviously he's having to cede his farm over to Honey to fuel the guy you could trust to carry, and that makes things worse again. And we'll see. It's now been a split. He was a complete rookie coming in. He's coming up against actually quite a lot of tough competition. The LJL is not necessarily a weak region necessarily. Like you saw a little bit of that at MSI. You know, like there's some strong players here. There's some strong teams here, and it's a tough league to just come out of. But we don't really have a very good amateur system at all. So it's a bit like coming in from like college level at the States in NA into pro level. It's not coming out of academy in because there is no academy system yet, which has been a bit of a point of contention, honestly, actually, for the teams. Maybe that is a thing, this split, with a little bit more grounding, a little bit more coaching. The likes Megamin can step up and be counted and be a secondary carry to back up Hoglet, who's been a great sort of he's great at getting the snowball rolling, but he's not great at carrying the snowball himself. And someone to back up Honey would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Metal Cock, go on.
No. My point was going nowhere. You can go on.
Fair enough. At least he understands it. All right.
Wow.
Let's get ourselves on to the next game because it's our second DFM game, and it'll also be versus V3. It's kind of been the more recent rivalry to have popped up in the LJL. Of course, V3 were the ones to dethrone DFM for the first time in a long while last summer split. DFM got vengeance in the spring finals. Temporal. Can they do it again, though, here in their first matchup of the day? V3 versus DFM, current meta. You've already mentioned some things you've got your eyes on in terms of the meta right now. V3 have been one of the more creative teams. So they've been drafting things like Tristana top. What are you thinking about this matchup?
Hopefully no Tristana tops. So
there was a serious amount of pain in your voice there.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, maybe, but not if they do that. I'm not exactly sure how V3 dethroned DFM. I did do a bit of prep on V3 for that Worlds, but I wasn't casting. I just watched sort of some of their regular season games. Maybe I should have watched the finals, to be honest. That sounds like a riot. It's going to come off tempo from game one, right? If DFM beat Rascal Jester, then it's going to be like, well, hey, V3, come and have your shot. Good luck. You've seen one angle of what we can do, and it might go worse. It might go better. But if it's a close game between Rascal Jester and V3, I think V3 are going to be laughing that half their scouting's been done for them. All they've got to do is cross out some things in the notebook. If their angle
tried that before and it's not worked out.
Yeah, it might not really work. But
like,
play through bot lane, it didn't work. Let's try playing through, I don't know, top lane this time. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, they may see angles, like hopefully they get something useful, like a weakness. But if anything, it ticks one strength off. If DFM could do 5 things on this patch, at least you're not going to make them do the same thing twice.
So the reason for me that V3 did so well in summer 2020 was 2 players, and that was Boogie and that was Rhino. They were the 2 which were so far above the rest of the competition in that particular split, and they worked very well together. Actually, there was one game which ended up being a loss, partly because they kind of outdrafted themselves. They drafted themselves into a bit of a rabbit hole, but they ended up having something like a Thresh Nidalee pairing. And it was like, there is only like 2 levels in this game you can get an early game gank off of before those certain like levels are built up. I can't remember it might have been against a Tom Kench lane or something like that. It's like you have the ability to gank this lane for like 30 seconds and they still managed to pull it off. Reiner's still in the squad. Boogie has obviously left for the LLA. It sadly didn't make it to MSI. That would have been a great matchup for us to face Furious Gaming and see our resident MVP jungler from 2020 summer. But this was a team that just kind of understood their way into a game, even if they had kind of drafted themselves a bit into a bit of a crap place. We didn't see that so much in spring, but come playoffs, they did obviously find a way to upset Rascal Jester, and it was an upset. Like, they came in, they 3-0'd the hell out of them. It was pretty crazy. So, and I think that if they come in, again, with a better meta understanding, there is a chance that they come in, like Temporal was saying, and they have, they're just crossing out things in the notebook, but you can never really cross out the player diff, and that's honestly always going to be there between Aria and Ace. We saw this between CGA and V3 all the way through 2020. It was the kind of thing where effectively, this is where actually V3 discovered we just have to check Ace on non-interactive champions so he cannot bleed out against people like Pyrion, against Seros, against Aria from that season of LJL. And you can't really do that against this DFM squad because you need to do that you need to make non-interactive games lanes against Aria as a potential need to do that against bot lane now, and Ebby is always going to be a worry, even though Cog is a very good top laner. I think Cog's the one person you're not worried about here. Problem is, it's not going to be a point of relative strength, it's just going to be evening up the scales compared to other LGL teams. That's the problem against this DFM roster. You're probably always going to be outmatched pound per player.
All right, I'm going to cut you off there briefly.
Before we move over.
Oh no, I need to talk to Melvin Isil.
I fear random.org but a lot. And then I would like to highlight for these two DFM games, it's pick DFM.
Oh, for God's sake.
The dartboard will defeat all of us.
It's sentient.
All of us.
If we lose to random.org, I'm going to be really upset. Okay.
Yeah,
with that shard of fear thrown to the back of all our minds, Middlecop Melvin, any thoughts on this before we move on? Which I'll give you guys the chance to start the next one out. Anything you guys want to talk about on this matchup?
Yeah, so I think just to echo what Nymaera said, I think Cog goes even against Ebby, and you're like, great. And then he turns around and he looks at the rest of his team on fire, and it's like, not great. You do always have to account for the player diff. I think, particularly with this V3 roster, I think it's gonna be something that DFM can really expose. Obviously, V3 didn't do too great in the regular split, did manage to get to the final in spring, but again, DFM able to play a diff and just able to out team them, and that's always going to be the case. I think unless we start seeing people like Ace and Hollow step up.
Yeah. And again, Hollow has got a split under his belt, looked okay in spring, but a little bit like Archer last year. Anybody who followed his trajectory, so he was the guy who was playing for V3 last year, looked really great, world's best player for V3, honestly, on paper. He started spring relatively quiet. In the clutch moments in late game, he'd often overstep. Come summer, he was an absolute beast with Reiner. V3 have done this before. Reiner has done this before. Things like Thresh, things like Set right now are pretty viable in the bot lane, all things considered. Reiner's two best champions are, in fact, Thresh and Set. It was pretty much all he played last year, which became a bit of a detriment when people realized they could dodge hooks at Worlds, but that's neither here nor there. So we'll wait and see. But that's worth keeping an eye on. Melvin, any last thoughts before we move on to our next match?
Based on the arguments against V3, the one thing I was trying to furiously Google and look around was to see if Ace had any indication of being able to play Viego. Because this champion is very, very good for putting a player who is not exactly the most winningest, we'll say, in a losing matchup where it's really hard to lose that badly. Because all it takes is a single team fight. And this champion literally can just take the power the enemy has accumulated, pick up the pick.
But you have items. Yes.
So that is like my one silver lining to think if this is something. They've got some Renekton, they've got some Set, things like that. They've got melee mids in potential, but I believe that's up to you guys to feel like if they really could pull off something like that.
I like that little thing thrown in there, maybe. Anybody else want to add on? I'm hearing a little bit of like Arias in the background. I want to move on.
Just steal Aria.
Just take those stats. It's great.
Just take him. Yeah. If
you're just take the 4-item AD carry. That's completely fair and balanced.
We don't have Aria on our team. With Viego, you can have Aria on your team.
God,
it's brilliant.
Wait, again, who's Just go
Okay, all right. I'm gonna move us on.
Yep.
Sorry, we've got to keep ourselves relatively to time. Next matchup, got ourselves Axes versus V3. Melvin, you can start this one up. You started with the silver lining for V3 in this one. I suspect it might be slightly clearer skies versus Axes, but what do you think?
They should be fine. They should be fine. This would be a very scary game if V3 were to lose this, especially after playing DFM. Like, the only thing you can realistically say that I can imagine Axis win this game is that DFM rock V3's world so hard that they actually just get shaken coming into Axis and go, like, insanely bad meta read. That is pretty much the only way I can imagine this matchup going out of V3's favor. I don't know if anybody else has more hope for Axis, but I would be surprised.
Well,
they've got a bad week. They've got a bad week.
It's rough.
Speaking of Lord Middlecott, defender of the realm of Axis, anything you have to say in terms of ways that maybe this could go the other way?
No.
I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. If you're,
yeah.
Go. So
We
what I'll
dream
say
on a
is
dream.
this. What I'll say is this: is that if Hollow and Reiner continue to be a little bit suspect in lane, which they were towards the end of the last split, even in playoffs, honestly, Honey could definitely take advantage of that. Even if, unfortunately, his support is a little bit suspect. Nemo or Dicey both haven't been fantastic, in all honesty, but Honey has been very good at carrying the additional weight. And if he can get a couple kills in lane on something like Samira, people should be a bit afraid. I'll also add that I wonder whether Ace isn't going to be the kind of person who would punish Megamin in lane, and in fact might give Megamin a little bit of license to pick up something like the Zed or the Viego, which would very much play into his play style. So if I were to see Axis win, it would be Hoglet having a good game, early game, getting either Megamin or Honey rolling, and the picks just being in the right kind of place for them at the minute. My 2 cents? Anybody else want to add in there?
It's a possible future.
Well done.
I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. As soon as like Middlecart started like umming and ahhing, I was trying to see if I had like a cricket sound effect on my soundboard, and the best I've got is cicadas instead. So slightly more thematic.
But he's anyway. Very good. So, I used to sort of sleep like my apartment in Japan, so I used to live out there for a bit. I had like this big tree outside the window. Like, it was like so like one side was like a truck depot, which was awful. Not a fan. It was like a mini one, but so it was like 5 trucks in there, but it wasn't great. But out of the front window was a massive tree. So it hit the summit. It was sweaty as all hell, and there'd just be this wah of cicadas in the background at like 3 a.m. It's like I need to sleep. It's way too hot. And
anyway, so that's going to be the Summoner's
Literally.
Rift at 18 minutes after the game's already ended.
Can I just say I've never heard a cicada that goes wah.
Hang on.
Sorry, See, it's like a little bit. Wait, Sam, what are you doing?
Is there a
Appears to have
recording?
been sidetracked. What dude?
Oh.
What is this?
It's got a music box.
I come prepared for all kinds of sound effects. The old percussion frog.
Oh yes.
I actually can't hear that, Sam.
Louder.
Picking up on mic. This is pain.
I can hear it through in the other room. I can't hear it on mic.
That's so sad.
That's an impressive noise gate.
He just threw it
The
away.
percussion frog.
What the hell, Sam? You threw it away harder than Axes are going to throw away this game. Go on to the next one.
Hey!
And that's
Try to offer some, some maybe options for Axis and offer some cool sound effects instead. All I do is just
It's just
really awkward.
Come
love
on,
it.
see you a frog in this trying time.
Moving on. No, you cannot. Instead, you could offer me some analysis in terms of Crest Gaming Act and the Hawks. Instead, for the first time in a little while, Nymaera. Start this one up.
Oh, CJ versus the Hawks. This is. Oh, I was like, I wasn't prepared for this. I was waiting for. Okay, yeah. So CJ versus the Hawks. This is going to be a big test of current form for me because I look at Hawks and I know that we were talking about that, and we will talk about this in terms of Sengoku because obviously there's a player in there which is in a similar situation. But in their last playoff series, in their only playoff series, Hawks did go to 5 games. They took 2 games off of V3. Need I remind you, Rascal Jesters couldn't do that. A lot of that's because Tussle was finally a threat. And if we have Tussle, who is coming in on form, versus Kassin, who is coming in on last split's form, I think that the Hawks are going to be in a pretty good spot for this. However, if, as we saw with, I don't know, someone like Proud coming in from 2020 summer playoffs, coming into 2021 spring, where we saw Proud be doing very well in the support role, and then not really meet that same level of performance coming into the next split, it could get really, really awkward because the Hawks looked a bit lost without Tussle being able to stabilize the map and be able to transition their strong laning state into a strong mid game, which is what the Hawks had failed with for such a long time. However, on Twitter, Corporal did say he's going to carry 15 regular season games on Rakan, and there are only 14, so he needs to tie break with another 14-0 team. So this is going to be a very strange arc of the League of Legends anime in LJL. But I think that the Hawks, if they manage to come in all guns blazing with Apperman coming in strong, with Tussle coming in strong, I think that I would edge them over CGA. But then on the other side, CGA needs to be worried about playing a very strong laning team as a team that doesn't particularly lane well.
Yeah. Give us the other side of the coin, Temporal. What are you thinking?
I don't know. These teams are at two big question marks.
Yeah, that's very fair.
The outcome of this game will likely set a pace that they will then have to usurp or continue with cursed or not cursed for the rest of the split. I saw Melvin waving his hands. Take it off me, buddy. Take the hot potato.
All right, this is my match of the week. Right here.
He took that hot potato real off. Temporal was like, "Why did you give me this?" And
And it just exploded all over the camera right now. So, I went back to look at the two VODs from last year between these two teams in the matchup. Both of them, hilarious flips around the Baron.
Yes.
That ridiculously swung the game both way. It was insane just watching back and seeing, oh, nice. Okay, the Hawks have won both of these. How did that happen? And it's just everything falls apart all at once. They just stand in a Baron pit and get mowed down, and there's nothing that they do to fight back. And the point that I have for why this is the match of the week is I expect it to be explosive regardless of current form, because these two teams are just close enough together in my mind that they can compete non-stop. And it doesn't matter who has a lead, because there is always the chance of a massive throw, particularly from the Hawks at that Baron buff. So this is why it's my match of the week, because I'm very excited to see if they can change their current form, because frankly, a 2-0 here suddenly makes it a lot more difficult for them to lose to that burning core that I did have sneaking out over them in playoffs.
All right, cutting you there. Middlecott's fingers up. Give him a second. What are you thinking?
Right, no. So, you said...
Oh, boy. Right, we've started it now. Continue.
Right. So, you said it could flip in, like, the late game. Doesn't really matter who's ahead. It does matter who's ahead, because Crest Gaming at last regular split, 5 of their 7 wins, they won with gold deficits at 15 minutes. When you get later into the game...
Well,
yes.
Everybody who is not Nation can't lay.
No, right. So, like, they still ended up 7-7, despite the fact that they had the second worst goal difference at 15, just ahead of Axis, just ahead of Burning Core. Like, this is a team that, as you get later and later into the game, they can actually start to punish you. And yeah, if you're a team like DFM or Rascal Jesters and you get a lead early on, then you're probably just going to snowball that through. But we've already seen from Crest Gaming that they do actually know how to exist and cope with falling at a deficit early on.
Yeah.
Which is why I like to dub them CLGA, Counter Logic Gaming app, because they can be pretty counter logic at points. And I think that it's going to come up like trumps this year. I think I've got the faith. This is a team that are going to do well. They're going to smash week 1, easy dubs.
What I will say, put this in context a little bit, is yes, as a team, they'd be down at 15 at gold. But go check out Nation stats at 15 for me,
I have.
Exactly. And then you look at someone like Sin stats at 15, you realize he's a bit more mercurial, but the point is you can guarantee that Nation will have a good laning phase. That basically means if you can run something like Lucian, pick it up with a Xin Zhao, which they were already doing, and then just like say, okay, you know, maybe Alchemy on Lulu sounds awful, but we'll do it. Make this happen and sweat a little bit, but we'll see. And you suddenly got like these guys who you know you can trust to lead the way, and like yes, everyone else is behind, but it's okay because I am fed and I will carry.
So
here.
What I'm hearing
it's like your challenger friend coming down to carry your like dumb gold games, right?
Nation karma. Nation Cup, the LJL Abadage.
Yeah, bit of that. I mean, like, there is some worlds where this kind of thing happens, right? So I can see that. The only problem is, in my mind, is if Dash is on form and Tussle's on form, that's a mid 2v2 that either goes one way or the other, and depending on which way it goes, it gets a little
I'm just aware we've
interesting.
got a bit of a time thing on. We might want to ask some
Exactly,
questions.
so I'm
going to
move us on. Exactly. All right, so we've got ourselves a couple more matchups to go before we end up. So we'll run through these ones real quick. So I'm going to keep us pretty tight on this one. Hawks versus Sengoku. Temporal start, be quick, and we'll move on from this. It's Sengoku's first conversation here, so they're the team to focus on.
The other team to focus on, traditionally one of our better finishers in the split. Personally, I don't think they're on a great trajectory, and they could really spike me and ruin my predictions horribly here. I just don't. So when I look at teams, I'm really non-statistical. It's not that I abhor statistics. It's just I think they're often a product, not the creation.
Fair
But
enough.
that's boring. I just don't know personally how they're going to overcome all of these great players we've spoken about, even on teams where there's struggles. Is like, oh hey, but this one lane, the one avenue, they have a clear identity. They play to the identity. They innovate around it. They go forwards. I don't see Sengoku's identity right now as sustainable as other teams. Even Axis, we've mentioned. It's like, hey, they're AD carry. If they're going to do it, it's the AD carry. I don't trust Sengoku right now, even though they've had some show performances in the past, to really push that through.
All right, Melvin, you do though. Why do you think what are you thinking of Sengoku in this matchup?
I think that Sengoku should be favored here. I mean, realistically, these are two games that they kind of need to win if I'm not to look like an idiot and say that if they're getting second place and dropping games to the Hawks or Burning Core, then we have bigger problems here. So I do have confidence in them. I think that coming into the split, they did have pretty good form, just generally speaking, near the end. But realistically, I think that the fact that Hecarim is just barely gonna get picked up with that Divine Sunderer might just give them a way to continue playing something familiar to them.
And that's a real possibility because Sen is the power pick here. Senna was like
Gango's a wonderful Senna.
Gango is a really good Senna as a Zenit. Zenit's only real consistent carry champion was the Senna. Both the games that the Hawks won in playoffs were on the Senna. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, if you end up getting Senna, well, I mean, if you trade Senna for Hecarim, I still favor Hawks if they come in with side selection. I think they choose blue side. I think they snap up the AD carry they want.
All right. Senna's a big one. Hecarim's a big one. Temporal and Melvin has slightly different takes on this one, but interesting one to gauge some strength levels of Sengoku in particular. Last split, we had our power rankings say, well, Sengoku could end anywhere between 5th and 2nd. We have no idea. Maybe a little bit of division in the ranks here among our analysts on their takes coming into this split. But we are still a little shy. So the other one of those interesting matchups, which could be an absolute fiesta, isn't it, Middlecott? Burning Core versus Sengoku Gaming. Discuss, sir. I'm casting this game. I am ready.
We're gonna have a great time.
Do you want to take it, or shall I elucidate why I've picked Burning Core to win this game?
Oh my! Okay, all right, we'll come to you. But Middlecott, you're muted, by the way, mate. Not quite sure what's going on there.
Say the words, Middlecott.
He's still muted.
No signal from you, my friend.
Discord. You're muted on Discord.
Yes.
There he is.
Hey! Start again. You go. Then we'll discuss why Temporal is a madman.
I was actually. Oh, I'm very good at
He gave the win condition. He told us how they'd win.
Win
Silence is out of the game, Macely, unless you play Malzahar.
Win condition is for Burning Core. Gango plays worse than he did in spring. And I think that's unlikely to happen. Whilst Rayfaki does look good in the top side, I don't feel like that's going to be enough because of that strength just coming through from the Sengoku bot lane.
All right. Monumental bot gap is Middlecott's call, and I can't necessarily disagree with that considering what Gango and NT did last split. Temporal, though, you have come out with something after my heart because there's still a little flame in me hoping for a Burning Core and not a corpse. What's going on?
You have picked them as well.
This is my upset game. Go on. I don't want it to be an upset game.
We are in this boat together. So yeah, bot diff, CJ much stronger. as we have mentioned. I think hopefully it doesn't matter. Bot can mostly be managed in draft if you're not on the Varus with like the dive thing. Then things start to get interesting, start to get interactive. Interactive is maybe not what we want, but hey, Ezreal exists and the LJL just keeps picking him. But Nymaera, go on.
Problem
What's
here
wrong
is,
about Ezreal?
I was going to bring up an anecdote about this matchup and how the last time these teams faced, what Burning Core decided to do was vertical jungle with an Ezreal Karma to just crush bot lane. And then they allowed the Aphelios Thresh to get level 2, and they got Crescendum. No, they got Severum at level 2, lost.
Yeah,
like
onslaughted
HP,
with Crescendo.
and within about 10 seconds destroyed their entire game plan because their 2v2 was just that bad. They walked up into the active range of an Aphelios and then lost the entire game because their entire game plan was Aphelios Thresh, they don't do anything in the first 15 minutes, probably won't for the rest of the game, and they let them do that at level 2.
Like, I'm not even joking. It was like they managed to, in the space of like 5 minutes, lose every single lane at once.
Yeah,
it was
right.
Basically, because Ray fucking teleported bot, lost his main. Gargano lost passively, and bot lane failed the level 2 skill check on Ezreal Karma. Like,
it's not even a skill check. They invented a level 2 skill check. It's not there.
With that memory burning bright in Burning Core's minds, hopefully they play through topside. I want to see something kind of neutral. Again, we're all laughing because it probably won't work. But hey, it might do.
All right. Any last thoughts before we move on? We are a bit time constrained, and I'm aware that obviously there is some mild pain that's come out of memories for myself and Nymaera there. Yep. Melvin, you got anything you want to add in? I'm looking you got a little bit of an eye.
No, I think I'm good for Burning Core. I'm just excited to see, actually. This game and the next one, we're casting it, and I think we're going to have a great time one way or the other.
So much fun.
Buckle in, my man, buckle in, because the next game was the 2020 match of the week every single time, because it was
incredible.
Fiesta,
Genuinely
bloodbath on another level. Yeah, Burning Core versus CGA. Nymaera, take this one away. Keep it to 2021, but feel free to bring in some anecdotes if there's something you want to call
I was looking for something, because obviously I've been hooked on my soundboard because I mentioned it once and I'm in that kind of mood. And all I could find for burning sounds is like the Doom soundtrack. And honestly, that was kind of what 2020 matchup was anyway. It was just unnecessary wanton violence.
Rip and tear until the game's done.
Rip and tear until somehow Jinx and Lissandra win a game. This was such a fun matchup in 2020 because we had effectively, we basically had Gango and Arya on the same team trying to carry against all the odds without having a jungler. And on the other side, we had Once and Rayfarki trying to carry against all the odds because they didn't have a mid and a bot lane. So it's two very unequal sides of the map having at it until something gave, and it was an incredible matchup. Sadly, we didn't get a best of 5 between these two teams because it would have been absolutely incredible to see. So in the current iteration of these two teams, we still have CJ with a very strong mid carry, top side of the map, very strong at team fighting. If they survive the laning phase, they are a team that does come alive and really brings it to you. Particularly Alchemy and Nap have found multiple ways across this last split of getting onto the AD carry, even when the AD carry is insanely fed. I think there was a game where they were against the Hawks and it was Zenit who was very fed on Samira, and they still found ways to keep them accountable with Rel and Renekton getting into the backline. Against someone like Burning Core, I think that Rayfarki versus Nap is going to be a matchup which they are going to try and snowball, try and get themselves ahead. I hope they're not going to put Rayfarki onto the Renekton again. He wasn't much of a Renekton player before this split. He was much more of a Jace player, much more of a carry player. I think if they manage to set up the top side for success, I think that Burning Core could end up breaking this streak of form which Kassin and Nap have had throughout spring 2021. I think that this is where the game's going to be solved, because I think the bot lane is kind of who sucks less at this point, because they've both ended, because in both ways, both these teams look at each other, and this is the narrative we have for them in the last split, looking at each other and saying, ooh, this is a bot lane we can probably take. Both of them are saying that because neither of them really fare well against the rest of the league. It's a very dynamic matchup in that regard.
All right. I want to paint a picture before we move on, because we're getting close to time. You remember that cinematic from the beginning of the split? Was it this year or last year? I forget. Anyway, the one where Silas turns back up on the bridge. And it's like, he's been to the Freljord, brought this army back. This is basically once in this scenario, eh? He went into the cold, the Freljord, last split. It wasn't great. He was having to play chem tank junglers. Just, you could carry. He had to get things started on Udyr. Who does that? I want to play Graves, that kind of deal. And now he's come back, and the chains have been broken, and he's back looking to lead the charge in this one. Well, you could play things like Xin Zhao, and maybe Lee Sin. You could, take out the solo lane to put it on the jungle if you're feeling confident in your play. These are some options. Even things like Morgana or Rumble, where you can at least start scrapping at level 6 and have some fun with it. You can carry with these champions, right? And this is kind of the meta where I wonder whether, for me, Cassin and Silas are going to be Silas and what? I started the image in my mind and have conflated these two champions. I don't want to see Silas in the jungle. That's a dead thing. Stop it.
I love Silas in the jungle. Just a sidebar.
I quite enjoy it too, but I don't know whether it would be great in the current meta. Anyway, well, maybe it is. Who knows? But this is the kind of player where I also see someone like once sort of go, you know what? Gwen can play jungle. Give it to me. Never mind anybody else. Just give it to me. That could be a lot of fun. So for me, this matchup is going to be a little bit about which jungler basically either ints or carries first and hardest. But I don't know whether everybody else has any other thoughts. That's just my take.
It's going to be how a lot of pro play goes this split, I think.
Yeah,
I think you're kind of spot on with that dynamic. It's like, oh, no, the Gwen's 3-0. How did we do this?
Yeah. Do you remember the... does anyone remember the Season 5 copy pasta, that really awesome shitpost of... Season 5 Summer SKT, where, it is the SKT household. Faker awakes and addresses his subjects and says,
yeah, this one.
Master Yi. The whole team Marin says, Faker, yes, this will bring us victory. Koma says, well done, my student. And Bengi says, perhaps I can play the Master Yi. Silly Bengi, back to Rek'Sai. And that's effectively what's going to happen between top laners and junglers this split. You choose who is Faker and who is Bengi.
Yeah, who gets the Lee Sin, really?
I like that.
But maybe I can play the Lee Sin.
I hope it ends the same way, where actually they give Faker what he wants, but then it's like, Bengi, you can come back from the cellar. We need your Nidalee.
Yeah, it's time. And that
completes
it's still
the circle.
The most clutch performance in LoL history, as far as I'm
Absolutely.
concerned. Game for Rox Tigers semi-finals World Championship. Go watch that series. It was fucking phenomenal. But we are going to move on. That's the last of the matchup. I'll leave that one a little bit shorter because I think it's going to be a wonderful, chaotic bloodbath. I'm crossing my fingers. I don't need deep analysis, guys. We can move on to that later. But that, at least, is a little bit of some grounding coming into the spring split. We probably won't do this kind of thing every week, but it is nice to come in with some narratives and some expectation sets for people coming in. Some ideas of power rankings in our mind, some expectations on initial matchups coming into the split. However unlikely that may be, because, of course, Melvin has all raised the very valid point that we have no idea where teams are at, because we've not seen them in quite a while. But last things to do is answer some damn questions, because we've got a few to talk about.
Yeah, I'll try and roll through them. We don't have long, but...
Well, okay, that's fair and true. So let's pick some of these podcast questions, indeed. So I think the most interesting ones in here is... All right. Quincy asked us a little bit of... we've asked these questions already, but So Quincy asked, we answered the one about input rules before, so we'll scrap that one. We'll scrap that one. But I do want to ask is Kanatu the hottest rookie in LJL history?
They're not Ramone, which is always going to be the problem. Ramone came in his first split and kicked some heads in. I think Kanato's good.
Arya, maybe?
Arya didn't have the best... Well, Arya was good in their first split. Actually, that's a good point, actually. I think that he's on a par with... I think that he's on par with Arya's first season. I think if he has a good summer split, he could match Arya's first season. Okay. Problem is, there needs to be a trajectory which continues from there. Because Arya was contending for top 3 in his first season. After that, it was when he started being, okay, this guy's probably the best here now. That was 2020 when he came and was like, yeah, this guy's uncontested best mid. But before that, yeah, he was not like as transcendent as he knew him to be.
All right. So, good calls there. I mean, to the rest of the crew, where you guys are a little newer to the region, I'm not expecting you to know like years and years of history as yet. But are there any other players you'd like to at least bring up to this discussion here before we move on to a slightly juicier topic of conversation before we end?
Nope.
Yeah, it's Ramone, it's Arya, and that's...
Yeah. I might shout out Dasher as well, because when he came onto USG, he was pretty phenomenal when he came in as a hot rookie. I know obviously he's been on the Hawks and not had the greatest time of it, but Dasher... 2017, 2018 was a real scary... Actually, 2018, I apologize. Was brilliant. Really, really cool. Awesome. Big question here. So Dara Darksil, lovely casting fellow of ours, brought up a question which says, if you could build your LJL super squad using the players currently active in the only ones in the LJL specifically, who would you pick and why? And Melvin has added a really important caveat of not DFM players. Otherwise, we just go, we'll DFM, right? Maybe the exception of Solid Secret in bot lane.
The DFM roster. Done.
So instead, I'm going to say no DFM players because I think that is more interesting. Because otherwise, there is going to be a lot of DFM in there. I'll leave the others to give a little bit of thinking first. Nymaera, you can start because you know this region better and therefore get less time to think. Go.
So I think top lane. I was thinking actually maybe Rayfarki, but actually Kanati has been really good. I think I go Rayfarki. I think that's my first one I pinned down because if I'm looking at, oh no, there's Cog. Oh yeah, that's actually really hard. Okay, so in top lane we have a choice of three. The catch of the day is Rayfarki. It's Cog, and it's Kanatu. It's one of those three. I think between those, I think Cog's the one which I think plays. It depends where you want your stylism coming in the team, because you're going to have one role which is going to do something weird, and it's just whether you want it. If you want it to be top lane that does stuff weird, you probably go towards Rayfarki because he only plays carries. I think Cog's the most solid. I think I go towards them.
Moving on. Continue. Next to your roster.
I think after Hatchematcha, I think.
Fine. Mid.
Probably.
Can't say Arya.
Dasher. I like Dasher.
Fine. Bot lane.
Oh crap! I can't play. Can I just pick Soul and Secret, or is that?
Fine.
Oh,
Done.
sure.
Great. So you have got Cog.
I have 3 Koreans. I've broken the rules.
Who did you have in the jungle?
I put Hatchematcha in the jungle.
Hatchematcha. Okay, Hatchematcha. Okay, fine. Interesting. Cool. All right, nice one. Dasher, and then the Rascal Justice. Bot lane. Who wants to go next? I'm gonna be.
I'll shoot. I'll shoot.
Go for it.
Go Temporal.
Okay, I was gonna say Saros in mid, and then I realized he's also on DFM.
He's a sub. He's out of gun, exactly.
They're just acquiring all the things.
I'll allow Saros as kind of kind of step back a little. Yeah,
all right, I'll get away.
Allow that one. It's a little bit of a caveat, but I'll allow it.
I thought I'd step on that trap before anyone else might. I'm gonna choose Rayfarki in top because Core, great time, absolute great time, love it. Don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna jump to bot lane where it's gonna be Honey and Secret.
Moving on.
I actually did not mean to click that, but there you go, some cultist music.
How cursed it was.
Honey and Secret
is not a cult. Putting that right out there, it's not. Temporal, continue.
Honey and Secret in bottom. I think they're the best of the rest. Would they work together? Not a clue. Tune in and find out. Probably Crash in jungle. It's a bit of historical there, because I have seen them play some things that weren't the LJL, and I was pretty impressed way back when.
Peak Crash was great. Debut Crash was great.
Wonderful. So that was, hang on, let me think. That was Rayfarki, that was Crash, that was mid lane was Saros, and then you had Honey and Secret, which I can see the arguments for.
Yeah.
Melvin.
ADC is tough, man. I've just been trying to avoid the import rule. Frankly, I've got everything bar the ADC. I've got Cog, Kassin, Nahian, and Reyna, and then I'm not sure what on earth I pick for ADC, because I'm trying to be a good boy and follow the import rule. So I've already maxed out on Koreans right now. That's my issue right now. That's the one I'm looking at.
Milan.
There you go. I'll take Milan. There you go. First suggestion.
All right, little one from chat here from Reed, one of our producers, saying Appamen, Tussle, Dasher, Zenit, and Corporal, obviously.
Appamen is so mercurial. Wait, you've just chosen the Hawks.
He just
Reed.
said
Misery, go man, go.
I like that.
For God's sake.
I love how long it took Nymaera to figure it out. It's like wait,
that's a good roster.
I basically, I heard the first name, and it's literally just dial-up noises.
4 and 10 in the regular season, by the way. All right, come on. All right,
yeah. So, Cog, Pog, top lane, easy. Jungle, probably going to have to go for Hatchematcha. Look really good. Mid, Nahin, because he's like very good. ADC, Honey, because I think he's had to do good stuff on a team that's worse than Soul, so that's why he gets the pick from me. And then Corporal, Aussie pride. My dad's Aussie. I'm half Aussie. I love Australia. It's got.
I didn't like you for a reason. I say that actually quite a lot of my family's also.
Yeah, we actually quite a lot of families. I want to see Corporal do a shoey after every win. That's gotta happen.
Have you ever actually done a shoey, Middlecop?
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Moving on. Okay, end of that conversation. We're a little shy on time, so good stuff there. Is that actually you did complete your roster there before I got distracted by shoeys? Good. Fine, that was great. All right. I think as for me, I think I'd probably go Ray Farkey. I think Muujin would be the shout in the jungle. Then if I'm avoiding import rules, I think Seros would be safe, but again, that's that similar issue. Otherwise,
Ace is genuinely not a bad pick right now. His spring split is good.
Yeah, and then I might go something along the lines of Sol and NT to avoid the import.
I was thinking Sol and Reiner, actually. If I'm going to avoid import roll, yeah.
Okay, and a last question then before we close this podcast. And I'm going to need everyone to shout the answer after like a count of 3. And this is another one from Reed, which goes, will Sol get to play Ezreal? 3, 2, 1.
No.
Do not do it. I think it's in a sense of despair because there's a world where you're like, I have to ban Gwen, I have to ban all this other stuff, and Ezreal gets through. But like anybody with any sense would never give that man Ezreal. Similar to Utapon. Just don't do it. It's disgusting. End of conversation.
It's a really bad idea.
Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a little bit of a fiesta, a lot of names on screen, a lot of discussion. It's been pretty good stuff. However, we are very close to time. We've been streaming for about an hour and 15 actually live, something like that. It's time to call it a day. Any last thoughts from anybody here before we tune out?
God, it looks exciting.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, if Burning Court isn't a cult, then the Church of Aria is. Tune in this Saturday to see our Lord the mid lane return to his region. Ascendant.
See you on Saturday.